Hi, I'm Tom Quaintance. I'm the producing artistic director here at Virginia Stage Company and the director of this co-production between Virginia Stage Company and Norfolk State University Theater Company of Henry V. Now, Henry V is a lot of things. It's part action-adventure, part comedy, part romance, but it's also one of Shakespeare's history plays. Now, Shakespeare wrote 10 history plays that were centered around English kings, and Henry V lands kind of smack in the middle of that timeline. And there are characters and events from the 3 previous plays, Richard II, Henry IV Part 1, Henry IV Part 2, that play an important role in the plot of Henry V. So here is what you need to know from the previous plays. Starting with Richard II. King Richard was deposed by Henry of Bolingbroke, who was Henry V's dad, in a civil war in 1399. Now, deposing a king is no small crime, and it haunts both Henrys. Before the Battle of Agincourt in Henry V, Harry asks God to think not upon the fault my father made encompassing the crown. That's about all you need to know from Richard II. So, Henry IV, Parts 1 and 2. These plays follow the tumultuous reign of Henry of Bolingbroke, now King Henry IV, and it covers years that are beset by civil wars. In these plays, we meet several key characters from Henry V. Prince Hal, who later is Henry V, the Earl of Westmoreland, who becomes one of his trusted advisors, Gloucester, his brother, and the gang of drunks Prince Hal used to run with, Falstaff, his page, who is boy in Henry V, Hostess Quickly, Lieutenant Bardolph, and Ancient Pistol. At the start of Henry IV Part 1, Hal is a gigantic disappointment to his father, drinking and robbing folks with his wastrel friends. For thou hast lost thy princely privilege with vile participation. Hal redeems himself somewhat on the battlefield, but everyone around him is still concerned that when he becomes king, he will continue to associate with the drunken knight, Sir John Falstaff. Falstaff, by the way, was such a popular character, he inspired a spin-off comedy, The Merry Wives of Windsor. At the end of the play, Falstaff is convinced that his friend Hal is going to shower him with money now that he is the king. But he is crushed when instead the newly crowned Henry V says, "I know thee not, old man." Perhaps the most important line of Henry IV Part 2 that impacts Henry V, however, is a piece of advice that the dying King Henry IV gives his son when speaking about the miserable civil wars that have plagued the country his entire reign. "Therefore, my Harry, be it thy course to busy giddy minds with foreign quarrels." So, a deathbed wish to start a foreign war to consolidate power at home. Harry has clearly taken that advice to heart, and immediately before the start of the action of the play, Henry V, he has asked his advisors to consider his claim on the throne of France. So that's the background here. Now we're going to get into a little bit of a summary of Henry V, so if you don't want any spoilers, don't go any further. Henry V. The play opens with a chorus asking the audience to forgive telling such a magnificent story with such meager resources, and asks the audience to play a critical role in using their imagination to fill in the gaps. Think, when we talk of horses, that you see them. The play then opens with the Archbishop of Canterbury talking to a colleague about a bill in the House of Commons that would strip land from the church. This would drink deep. 'Twould drink the cup and all. Canterbury seems to channel Henry IV's advice about busying minds with foreign quarrels and advocates for war with France. This is not the last time in history a war would be fought to distract from local politics. Henry seems ready to battle, but it's the Dauphin's insulting message that makes an invasion a certain course of action. "Tennis balls, my liege." The king's former companions from his days in the Eastcheap Tavern hear of the death of Sir John Falstaff from Hostess Quickly. "By my troth, the king hath killed his heart." They take their leave of her and set out to join Henry's army. In France, the Dauphin insists that Henry is an unworthy opponent. The French king disagrees. Exeter, the king's right-hand man, lets them know that a war will begin the moment the French do not hand over the crown. The French king offers his daughter, but nothing else. The war is on. Henry's soldiers take the town of Harfleur. "Once more into the breach, dear friends, once more!" Meanwhile, as her father gets his nobles ready to retaliate, Princess Catherine begins to learn English with the help of her companion, Alice. The English soldiers, after Harfleur, are on the march to Calais in poor condition. Disheartened by sickness and foul weather, Montjoy, the French herald, conveys the demand for Henry to consider of his ransom. "Surrender and we'll spare you, but not your soldiers." Henry rejects the offer, and a battle of Agincourt between the motley English forces and the full might of the French army is assured. At the camps, chorus contrasts the two armies. The confident and overlusty French do the low-rated English play at dice, and the French think, if the English had any apprehension, they would run away. Meanwhile, the poor condemned English, like sacrifices, by their watchful fires sit patiently and inly ruminate the morning's danger. Henry, in perhaps the earliest recorded episode of Undercover Boss, goes around his camp in disguise and finds his soldiers to be fairly certain they're all going to die. We see yonder the beginning of the day, but I think we shall never see the end of it. That morning, Henry rouses his troops with one of the great all-time pre-battle speeches. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. And the rest, as they say, is history. Hope to see you at the theater.